You hear the phrase, the cloud, thrown around all the time, every single day. But what is it really? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain, demystify this whole concept, and find out where your digital life actually lives. All right, let's dive in.
Just think about your day. You back up your phone, you binge watch your favorite show, you're working with your team on a document, you're told it's all happening in the cloud. But what does that even mean? Is your data just, floating around in the atmosphere? Let's figure out where this stuff physically goes.
So yeah, the answer, of course, is the cloud. But we're not talking about something you see in the sky. We are talking about a gigantic worldwide network of incredibly powerful computers. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that means and, more importantly, how it all works.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics. When people talk about cloud computing, what are we really talking about?
Okay, I know the official definition sounds a little dense, but let's unpack it. At its heart, cloud computing is all about being able to get computing resources, things like processing power, storage, databases, over the internet whenever you want them. The real key here is that you can get more or less of it instantly with just a click.
So these 5 things, this is what really makes the cloud, well, the cloud. On demand just means you can get what you need without having to call someone up. Broad network access means you can get to it from your phone, your laptop, anywhere. Resource pooling is a huge one. Providers serve tons of different customers using the same physical hardware. Rapid elasticity means it can scale up or down with your needs in a flash. And measured service, that just means you only pay for what you actually use.
Probably the best way to think about it is like your electricity. You don't own a personal power plant just to turn on the lights at home, right? You just plug into the grid. The cloud is that exact same idea, but for computing power. It's a utility. You're not buying a computer, you're renting the service of computing.
Now, the cloud isn't just one single thing. It's not a monolith. It actually comes in a few different service models, all depending on what you, the user, actually need to do. So let's take a look at the 3 main flavors.
The pizza as a service analogy is just perfect for explaining this. So at the very bottom, the most basic level, you've got infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. This is like someone giving you flour, tomatoes, cheese, and access to an oven. You get total control, but you're doing all the work. Moving up, you have platform as a service, PaaS. That's kind of like a take-and-bake pizza kit. The dough and sauce are ready, you just add your own creative toppings, which in this case are your applications. And then at the top, you've got software as a service, SaaS. That's the hot pizza delivered right to your door. You don't have to do anything but use it. This is what most of us use every day, things like Gmail or Google Docs.
So we get what it is, and we get the kinds of services it offers, but how does it actually work? How can one ginormous computer in some data center somewhere serve thousands of different people and companies all at the same time?
Yeah, it really does seem like some kind of magic trick, doesn't it? You have this one, single, incredibly powerful physical machine, but it has to pretend to be hundreds of smaller, totally separate machines for each and every customer. And the way it pulls this off, well, that's the technology that makes the entire cloud possible.
And the answer is virtualization. This is the secret sauce. It is software that essentially carves up one big, powerful physical server into lots of smaller, isolated, virtual servers. It's the engine that makes pretty much everything we've been talking about actually work. So here's a look at how that stack is built. At the very bottom, you have the physical hardware, the actual server, the bare metal. Right on top of that sits a super important piece of software called a hypervisor. Think of it like a traffic cop for all the hardware's resources. It's the hypervisor's job to create and manage all of the virtual machines, or VMs, making sure each one gets the right amount of processing power and memory, and crucially, keeping them all completely separate from one another.
And here's the key thing to understand. From the point of view of the software running inside one of those VMs, it feels like it has its very own private computer. It has no clue that it's actually sharing that physical machine with maybe hundreds of other VMs. This perfect isolation and efficiency is what enables that massive resource pooling we mentioned earlier.
But of course, like pretty much any technology out there, this model isn't perfect. It comes with a ton of incredible benefits for sure, but there are also some pretty significant trade-offs that you have to be aware of.
The pros are just massive. You get almost infinite scale, you only pay for what you use, and you can get to your stuff from anywhere. But the cons are definitely real too. You're putting your trust and your data in the hands of a third party, which brings up all sorts of security questions. It can also be really hard and expensive to switch from one cloud provider to another. That's a problem we call vendor lock-in.
And, well, the obvious one, if your internet goes down, so does your access to the cloud.
All right, as we start to wrap this up, I want to focus on the single biggest, most important idea to take away from all this. It's really about a fundamental shift in how we think about technology itself.
This quote just nails it. The cloud wasn't some sudden invention that appeared overnight. It was an evolution, the result of decades of work in different fields. And the final destination of that evolution is a completely new model for how we use computers.
And that, right there, is the absolute core takeaway. For decades, if you or your company needed more computing power, you had to go out and buy a bigger, more expensive physical computer. Now, you just rent it. We have shifted from owning a product to subscribing to a service. So I'll leave you with this final thought. We've seen this big shift from ownership to access happen with our music, with our movies, and now with computing power itself. So my question for you is, what's next? What other essential products in our lives are eventually just going to become services that we plug into? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.